Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. Not so long ago I showed you how to make one of these carpenter's clamps, and actually at the time I had another idea in mind, which I thought, well, I'll do it one day. And then I think it was two of the viewers came up and said, why don't you make something like this for the drill press? And so I've now pursued my original idea, and this is what I've got. I've got a clamp that fits across the back here. It allows me to do repeated cuts at the same distance from an edge whenever I want. It's got a couple of little clamping elements here. It can be taken off very easily, as you can see. And basically all it consists of is a handle with some threaded bar on it. It's the 8mm threaded bar I used with the carpenter's clamp. And there are two blocks of oak here. It could be any wood, but I've used oak. And inside this one, there's a screw insert. And so with this piece, which is free to float around at the bottom here, now when I screw the thread, then this piece gets clamped up onto this part of my drill press. And that's sufficient to hold it in place, nice and strongly. Piece of wood at the top is just a piece of wood. It's about 20mm thick. The two blocks of oak, the upper one where the screw insert is 25mm thick, and the lower one is 20mm thick. And this piece of wood here is about 10mm thick, and obviously it's a little bit longer because it's got to go underneath the edge here. And the distance between these two will vary according to your drill press, and as will this height vary. So I've used 25 and 20mm. You might need to use something quite different. So there we go. That's it, and it works. So let me show you how I made it. You can see I've got the mark there and the mark there, so that's there. The same here, mark there, like so. That one's done as well. So by using this method, by having this as the template, the blocks on each side should just about line up. Yeah, good enough for a job like this anyway. The majority of the holes in this piece and the blocks need to be just for the clearance of the screw thread as it goes through it, except for the holes in the two blocks which are 25mm thick. For those, I need clearance for the screwed insert to be screwed in, and that is a 10mm hole as far as I can remember. So I'm going to drill all but the two 25mm blocks out with the clearance hole, which is 8mm. The nuisance is that if you get a little bit of a blockage at the end, then it's very difficult to use the point on the brad point bit to actually centre the hole. And that's the way to get it centred, is you feel the point going in and then drill. And there's that little bit at the end again, which we've got to get rid of so that we can do the next one. There we go. It's there because a good quality brad point bit is going to be cutting around the outer edge here really cleanly. You can see the exit hole here. That's a really nice hole, and so that's why you get that little disc stuck on the end. It's not a fault of any sort, it's just a thing that happens. Now I'm not sure if it's 9mm or 10mm for this. It may in fact be 9.5. Now for my practice go, I'm using the same type of material, which is oak in this case. So I've got two holes. I've got 9mm and I've got 10mm. Just going to see. I think the 10mm is the right one to use. What I don't want to do, as it's a small piece of wood, I don't want to split the wood, which you can do. Yeah, that's too tight. So I think it's going to have to be 11. Now there's two things to note now. The first of all is we're going to be putting the holes in from the other side now, not the side where the pattern mark is, because this is going now down from the opposite direction. And at the end of the insert has a bit of a shoulder there, so I've got that's about 13 millimeters in my case. I haven't got a 13 millimeter drill, but I've got a 15 millimeter one. So I'm now going to put a little rebate here to take the end of that. Notice how I wiggle to feel the point of the cutter. That's fine. So that will now take the shoulder of the insert. Now I've got to drill out the 11 millimeter hole. I'm going to start it with a 10 millimeter brad point, which cuts nice and cleanly. But this time I don't want to go all the way through because these only go down so far. So I'm going to have to make a judgment now of where that might be. And I can eyeball that, frankly. I'm perfectly happy to do that. To about there. This is now my 11 millimeter cutter. And finally I'm going to go in from the other end with the 8 millimeter again. So hopefully now we can put those screw inserts in there and everything should be nicely centered. Now screw inserts can be notoriously difficult to get in. Now whatever you do, don't switch your drill press on when you're doing something like this, but I'm going to get this going. This is not an easy process, but once you've done it a few times you'll find it's not too bad. And once you've got the screw insert in most of the way, so I can now finish this off by hand. It's pretty tight. And the key thing is to make sure that is just subsurface. Now in order to glue this up, we don't want to involve these pieces because these are the floating pieces which will be pushed up and down as required. So not those pieces. We want to start with a 25 millimeter one with the thread on, and then we've got to feed on its matching 20 millimeter thick one, but with some glue on. So I'm going to put some glue on. So there's that bit of glue. Make sure I line up the dots. Dots are lined up. And now, this is the interesting bit. We're now going to do the other side, and we've got to get the dots lined up that way. So I'm now going to do this one, a little bit more glue. So that one's going on now. And my dot is at the bottom there, so I've got to end up with the dot at the bottom on here. Now actually, do you know, if I was clever I would have chosen a much shorter piece of thread than this, but I was so excited about doing it I forgot all about that. This is going to whiz round a bit, so I've just got to be careful now. I really should have chosen a shorter piece, shouldn't I? As Alfred Hitchcock said, it just makes it a little bit more exciting, doesn't it? Right, so now then, I've got to make sure I'm all lined up. Now what I'm doing is I'm keeping these two together, and I'm keeping these two together and tightening them up. And just to be on the safe side to make sure they're lined up, for no other reason at all, I'll just apply a little bit of clamping pressure there. a little bit of clamping pressure there. And that has served to help line those up a bit. Not a perfect alignment, but it really is good enough for this task. So I'm now going to leave that to dry. Well, I've finished off my little screw knobs here, and the length is judged by the overall length of this little lot minus a little bit, because you don't want, when it's tightened up, anything to stick out above the surface here. Now, at this stage, I want to glue the main blocks onto these two pieces, so I'm going to thread this in from the wrong direction now and use this to pull this in, use it as a clamp. I'm making sure I've got X and X, yeah, X and X are going to line up, so I'll put some glue on this one. I'm running this glue pot till it's completely empty, that's why I keep putting it that way up, so I can get the last dregs out of it, because I'm changing to tight bond 3 soon. X and X, yep. Now, the advantage of using this technique is that it does ensure that as this is being glued up, that this shaft is going through all of these comfortably. And so everything is lined up, even if there's a slight discrepancy here, which there is with this one. And I'll now do the other end. And that's it. So that's now held together for gluing, as is that one. So I'll leave that glue to go off. Now, because the screw thread insert is in this piece, and we're going to be screwing up from underneath, and this is where the pressure is from the top of the table of the drill press, then there's a risk that this joint can break here. And the glue is quite strong, but not really infallible. So I'm putting in 3 screws on each side just to make absolutely certain this never gives way. And just whilst we're here, whenever I take a screw out of something, I don't put that screw back in to the packet that it came from, because I always assume that the screw could have been stressed in some way and might break. So I keep a little box of screws like this, and I use them for jobs which just aren't important. If a screw were to break in whatever job it is, it wouldn't matter. So that's what that lot's for. Well, I've just given it a quick sand, and now I'm just assembling it, and then we'll test it out and see how it is. Now, I've got plenty of thread on these because I don't know, maybe one day I want to actually clamp something under here, but we'll see. Now, it's designed to be used with a piece of 18mm MDF as the sacrificial piece on here, and so let's give it a go. So there we go. I obviously want to screw this up so it's tight on both sides. And if you need to set the distance from the centre there to here, then you can do so. That's it. So there you have it. Cheap and cheerful, easy to make. And now if you want to drill a series of holes, a set distance from a given edge, you can do it very easily. Now, I've not produced plans for this because it will vary from one drill press to another. You just got to go and do some measurements of your own on your own drill press, and then you'll be able to make one of these very easily. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.